Doctors Wakiti Mabaso and Dr. Stefan van der Walt. They're the co-authors of the study, The Burden of Depression of Anxiety Amongst Medical Students in South Africa. And they join us now live from Durban. Doctors, thank you so much for joining us. Now, just by looking at you, we know that you're not old, grey researchers that we normally speak to about these kinds of studies. You yourself are busy with your internships as we speak, and yet just last year you presented the study looking at what your colleagues studying almost at the same time as you have been going through. What led you to decide that something needed to be done to delve into those lived experiences of your fellow medical students?
Well, good morning, Marcel, and greetings to all the viewers at home.
Yeah, hi, Marcel. So when Wakiti and I were in medical school, we noticed that almost all our friends were on medication for anxiety or depression. And before the study, we suspected this was going to be a big problem, but we wanted to have something concrete that we could show the world and that we could show our seniors especially to highlight what a big problem this is. So we approached some senior researchers at UCT for supervision, and Wakiti and I set out to do this study.
Now, Dr. Mabaso, you come from, if I've read and done my research correctly, you come from a family of doctors and yet decided to go into the field as well. Were you still surprised, however, by those levels of anxiety and depression that you found, even just among students, before you even start your careers in earnest?
Right. No, absolutely. You're correct. And interestingly, Stefan also comes from a family of doctors, and we all somehow ended up here. Less so surprised, more wanted to confirm the observations that we were making. It's a very intense field. It's very difficult to study to become a doctor, and there's a lot of pressures and factors, external and internal, at play. So it was really, as Stefan says, about documenting what we were observing around us and trying to do something about that. Yeah.
Now, Stefan, going by the trailer that we just showed of that documentary that references the work that you've done, we heard there from a female student and her experience and comments that she's had to work through on a daily. Your findings indicate that medical students, particularly females, are at a significantly increased risk of depression and anxiety and disorders. Talk to us a little bit in the difference of what you found in those who took part in the survey who were women studying in the medical field and those who were men.
Sure. So globally, if you look at depression and anxiety differences amongst men and women are more at risk. However, with that being said, personal experiences and observations that Wakiti and I had made in medical school show that there are definitely factors within the medical fraternity that would definitely worsen the experiences for our female colleagues. This was noted from day one in medical school for us.
Absolutely. And to also provide some more background to that as well, some of the tools that are used to study and identify depression and anxiety symptoms generally pick up features that one could generalize as more present or common in females in terms of the questions that are asked in the questionnaires. We'd still like to say and acknowledge that males are also at risk of depression and anxiety, perhaps even at levels equal to females. It's just that the way they present the symptoms aren't exactly asked for in some of the questionnaires. It's one of the flaws of some of the questionnaires that are out there and available to us. You may find that males present more with substance abuse and substance disorders as features of the same underlying processes.
Now, I sometimes feel we live in a world where the let's break them down to build them up approach to the medical field is almost romanticized. If you look at the TV shows that we've watched for generations, the movies and that kind of thing. But we do live in a different world now. Children grow up in a different world and respond to different approaches to getting the best out of them. Wakiti, do you think that there is enough of an acknowledgement that we need to change how we prepare young people going into the real world, and specifically in a medical field where they are often the difference between life or death for ordinary people?
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think there is a change that needs to be occurring, and I believe it has started occurring, because the reality is we do live in different times from the past, and with progression, come different challenges and different nuances to the way we experience the same things. For example, the way we experience medical school or medical education evolves over time. And with the current society that we live in, with the advent of social media, and that's just one example, but many other external factors at play that are different to about 50 years ago, I think it's credible to acknowledge that and start strategizing as to how we can prepare our future doctors and students in any field, really, for the future. Because the stakes are...
If I could bring Stefan in there just as we come to the end of our conversation, what are you hoping will change following on the research that you've done, the spotlight that you've been able to put on these lived experiences of these medical students, preparing to go into a system where we are desperately trying to hold on to our important human resources now more than ever? What are you hoping to see change?
Well, it's a big challenge, but there are structural factors that we hope will change, as well as spoken about earlier, other initiatives that could help with the anxiety and depression amongst medical students. By bringing this to the forefront, we hope that our seniors and the medical fraternity at large can finally start speaking about this issue that most of us are aware of, but is sort of hushed down.
Wakiti, just in closing, if I could come to you, what did you learn personally from doing this research as you too stand on the brink of a career in the medical field? Is there something that you will now do differently or keep an eye on personally in terms of your mental health going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I think maintaining your mental well-being was a huge takeaway for me personally. And however one does that, so there are many ways, external and internal factors, the environment that you work in, making sure it's a positive, healthy work environment, supportive environment, and focusing on mentorship, finding mentors, people who've experienced things before you to guide you through some of the difficulties. And internally, things like whatever it may be for you, spirituality, which includes religion, as in that, or seeing a therapist, or exercising, maintaining a healthy diet. Some of the basic things that keep us grounded. Utilizing those tools really helps.
And indeed, tools that will be helpful not just to medical students, but indeed all young people facing these important times in their lives. Thank you so much. Two very impressive young men, Dr. Wakiti Mabaso and Dr. Stefan van der Walt, the co-authors of research that they presented last year already, the burden of depression, of anxiety amongst medical students in South Africa. And they are also both medical interns doing their medical internship at different hospitals. One's based in Pietermaritzburg, working at the Pietermaritzburg Hospital Complex, and another in Belito, working at Stranger Hospital. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So they too standing on the brink of what we hope will be a wonderful medical career, because goodness knows we need to hold on to as many of them as possible.